want to start with is, how does your country's diverse history, culture, and religion influence the animal justice? What are the educational, historical, religious roadblocks to animal justice, and how does your language or the language that you use influence the way we see and treat animals? So we would Aprajita like to start with the session and discuss this? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Ilya. And thank you, Sumayu and Animal Alliance Asia for this session. So yes, so I would be talking about, like, very briefly, like what's the history of India related to animal justice and culture and religion influence. So as we know that India is a very diverse country, and one of the reason of its being diverse, the biggest reason is its history and its culture. So there are many religions in India. So so when we talk about Hinduism, it talks about ahimsa and the sacredness of life. Jainism, the path of non-violence, and Buddhism, sentient beings and compassion towards, compassion towards sentient beings. And we have Sikhism. So in all the religions, it's like there is this peace which is promoted. And also various animal rights movement have been inspired by their religious values. So we cannot deny the fact that various animal rights movement have emerged with the inspiration of religious teachings. For example, like majority of temples and religion institutes across the country increasingly advocate for animal welfare and discourage harmful practices such as animal sacrifice. So like recent example I can give of, there's this place in Gujarat. The name of the place is Palitana. So which went 100% vegetarian in 2014. So declaring the city as a meat-free zone, and this is because of the destination is the like people practicing Jainism who reside in that city. And also when we go like little back, like during British colonialism time, during that time it was like the possession of animals were really bad. And so they were the first people who brought slaughterhouse in India, the first slaughterhouse in India. And when it comes to post-independence era, then slowly people got aware about, like how animals should be treated, like welfareism, like welfare approach towards animals have gained the momentum among the people. So the more the people start getting aware about protecting animals and the environment as well. So this act came into existence, which is like Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, and also providing legal protection for animals and prohibiting act of cruelty. So this is like a like really brief about like how the history looked like. And also there has been many roadblocks, like since we have these laws and everything, but still we see like a lot of traditional practices involving animals, like animal sacrifice. Some religious and cultural tradition in India involves like during the rituals like sacrifice of animals, also the festivals. So that clashes a lot with the principles and principles of animal welfare and justice. So also the use of animals in entertainment industry. So our perception towards animals, when we see it, completely changes in Indian culture when we, see, listen to those stories, which gives us a lot of stories are there which gives the perception of that animals are object, they are not sentient beings. So that is also there in many parts in India. Also, the people, by understanding use of animal and exploit them like according to their convenience. So if we see India, like there are the regions, sometimes it is not only connected with religious values. A lot of people who lives in different parts in India, and according around for their survival, they eat animals, although in their religious texts it's not there, it's not like, it's like prohibited, but for the survival they have to eat. So it also depends on that, like where people are residing, and the like food availability for the survival. So that is also there. And also how we understand, like how we take the religious texts, like in temples, animals are being sacrificed during religious festivals in many parts in India. And that is something which is taken in general way, most of the people know that, oh, we don't eat animals in in our religion or something like that. So that creates a lot of like it looks more like a convenience of understanding the religious text, or convenience, like what is easy, and uh, like according to their understanding also it is practiced in different parts. So for example, like cows are sacred in India, but whereas buffaloes are not. But when we see this thing, most of the India drink buffalo's milk, and India is, the biggest, one of the number one or two. It always like exporter of meat. So these things have been affected a lot in the perception and the convenience of how people taking animals, like considering them not as sentient beings. Also, like when we talk about cultural norms, so hunting and wildlife exploitation is one of the things which we have seen, and which it's also been prohibited, but still it has been portrayed as cool sometimes for in many regions, like and it is connected historically also. Like hunting was considered as a royal sport, leading to the depletion of wildlife population. So this tradition has left a lasting impact on attitude towards animals and their rights. And I would come to the roadblocks, like how these the religion and cultural value becomes as a roadblock towards animals. So like we have this Prevention of Cruelty Act 1960, and Wildlife Act, like Wildlife Protection Act, to protect animal welfare. So these laws provide framework for animal justice and serve as a starting point for further progress. but also like a lot of people are not educated and aware about this. So promoting education awareness campaigns can help these cultural and religious norms that uh, that could help people understanding that why are we doing that, that why, like, unnecessary harm is not, it's not at all justified. And also when it comes to wildlife protection, like why we need that, what are the consequences. So a lot of people don't really know that why it is it's there. So cultural sensitivity and dialogue is also very, very important. Like we need to have dialogue, we need to have discussion. I think we need to bring some kind of a conversation so that people should start talking about it, which is very important, because if we don't talk about it, we wouldn't know that what misconception people have in their mind, and what kind of how they picturize animals, because a lot still, like, when we talk to a lot of people, they think that animals don't feel pain. So that is something which shocks us a lot of times, that how it is possible. So a lot of I mean, the lack of awareness is there, um when we see people that people say that the fishes, they don't feel pain anymore. So this is like some of like common arguments which we get to hear when we do outreaches, when we talk to people face to face. And also, like, when we talk about language. So language influence a lot of people. So people use animals' names to insult someone. So this has been ingrained in, I would say, like most of the languages we speak. We want, if you want to express ourselves, we tend to you take name of like particular species of animal and express it. So that's not the right, and mostly it is done, it is insulting, to insult someone. um and yeah. So in day-to-day language, to become more expressive, people often use these names to, and also to make are like themselves feel superior, that okay, to make someone look like, hey, you are inferior, so they would use animals names. So that's really bad, and it's not good. So using animals as an insult perpetuates to speciesism. So speciesism, again, it's something which is not good, and we should not distinguish between animals, animals and human and non-human animals. So that is one thing. And also advertisement, we see like meat and dairy industry, they want to sell the products, and want to show you that, oh, we are, animals are the commodities. So they do such things like using words like livestock, cattle, poultry. So these words are used in a way to make you buy those products, that it's okay, like nobody is harmed. So to make that impression on you. So it is very important for us to think before we speak, especially uh, it is important, when we talk about peace, bring peace in the world, or bring peace around us. So we need to unlearn a lot of things which the society has created according to their convenience, to exploit and oppress animals. Okay. Thank you. I hope I covered the question.
Yes, thank you so much. Such important points you've raised, and I think it's you have started this, initiated this discussion with very crucial points. So I would request Namra to further help us understand what are these roadblocks that are happening in Pakistan right now?
Thank you, Elia. So when we look at the culture of Pakistan, or we talk about the culture of Pakistan and how it relates to the animal justice movement or speciesism, I think the first thing that we're confronted with is how deeply entrenched inequality and social stratification of even human beings there is in our society. So particularly in relation to class or caste or ethnicity. And depending on where you fall on that structure, you are treated in a different way. And it's not just about inequality in the sense that you're discriminated against, or you're denied access to certain things, or you're treated badly. I think especially when it comes to the working class in our society, and to some extent caste as it operates specifically in Pakistan, there's a certain level of dehumanization that comes with it. And to the extent that in Pakistan, it's very common to treat working class people as almost untouchables in our society. It's very normal in Pakistani households to separate your utensils from that of your domestic help. And these things are so normalized that we are unable to see beyond these binaries and beyond our categorizations of human beings. And if you bring animals and how they're treated into that discussion, it becomes even more difficult, because animals fall even below that social structure. Because like Aprajita mentioned, we tend to think of animals as incapable of feeling, and not just feeling pain, but also feeling fear or sadness, or being able to, actually perceive that they're being mistreated. And people like to blame colonialism for a lot of these structures, and it's fair because we should blame them. But it's also important to understand that these are also coming from indigenous forms of oppression that have existed before British colonialism happened. And what British colonialism did was they not only created new forms of oppression and new oppressive structures, they also reinforced these existing indigenous forms of oppression. And how they made it even more complex was by transforming class relations in the Indian subcontinent. And now I'm going to talk specifically about the province of Punjab in Pakistan, which is considered the center of political power, and where most of political power is concentrated in Pakistan. And so in Punjab in particular, their objective has been to create a new class of persons within Indian society. I'd like to read out a quote by this colonial historian who talks about how this class should facilitate them in their expansion of the empire. So he says, to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. And so they have a direct hand in creating one of the biggest forces of political power in Pakistan, and particularly in Punjab, which is where all of the political power still resides. So how they did this and how that relates to the animal justice movement is that when they arrived in India, private ownership of land didn't exist, because we had hundreds of little kingdoms in the Indian subcontinent, and each kingdom had its own land, and whoever worked on that land got a share of whatever was produced, or the profit that was produced. What they did was not only introduce private ownership of land, but they also used it as a system of rewards. So it wasn't just that they were training them to have similar tastes or be interpreters and help them have control over the native population. They also, made them extremely wealthy. And to this day, that class has possession of endless amounts of land, which they're not even taxed on. So that tells you how much power they hold to this day, that they're not paying any tax on acres and acres of agricultural land. And one of the things that they cultivated in this class of persons was a love for hunting, because the British loved hunting expeditions, like Aprajita also mentioned. Their attitude to hunting was very aggressive. It's not as if the local rulers were not engaging in hunting. They did it to some extent, but the way that the British did it was quite different, to the point where I'm not sure about the figures, but the population of tigers in India was brought to near extinction. And to them, it wasn't just a leisurely sport as it is for, the usual upper class, but it's also an expression of power for them. It's an expression of, subjugating native species, and it's an expression of masculinity. So these are the kind of activities that this class was engaging in with the British Empire. And it's been 75 years since the British Empire ended and Pakistan has been independent. But the class that they cultivated and the tastes that they have, and most importantly, the language of power that they possess, and to this day use against other classes of persons who are lower to them, is the same as what the colonial powers used against native Indians. And that's the power that we're up against when we talk about animal justice. And it becomes even more difficult when you look at how much control they have over different industries and different, for example, meat and dairy industries. How people, not just the class of landowners, but also people who are in proximity to them, people who are their allies. And these are the people that you find in government and in political positions and in your provincial ministries, in your parliament. So any law that might come about, any sort of progressive movement that comes up has to confront this power that speaks in the colonial language. And one example of their attitude towards animals is how they treat lions and tigers. Now, they like lions and tigers. They're not killing them like the British did, but they still see them as symbols of of controlling them is a symbol of power and oppression. So these days you see a lot of wealthy people buying lion cubs and tiger cubs, and actually full-size lions as well, and posting about it in social media. And you'll see pictures of these lions like sprawled on their beds and walking around their homes in residential areas, in these posh homes that they have. And people have even seen people, at times, like someone driving around a lion in their car. It's ridiculous at this point. So for them, it's still an expression of power and masculinity. And it's happening in, open sight, and no one's doing anything about it. Another example is also the biggest political party in Punjab, which has, given us at least 2 prime ministers by now. Their logo is a lion. So they've been famous for having lions in their homes, and they would put them in cages right above the boundary wall so that everyone could see that they had lions. And they're also known to bring lions to their political rallies. So class relations may have evolved since the British left, but they're still speaking the same language of power, and their attitude towards animals, and even an animal such as the lion, which is considered precious and valuable, is the same. So these are the 2 levels on which we struggle when we start to talk about animal justice. But if you start talking about other animals, it becomes even more difficult, because they're animals that are useful. They're animals that are, luxury, which are, lions, tigers. Then there are animals that are working animals. And then there are animals that are completely useless within this structure or, speciesist hierarchy that we've created. So, for example, we've had such a bad, ongoing issue with dog culling. Pakistan has, particularly the major cities in Pakistan, like Lahore and Karachi, they have killed thousands of dogs on the street. Because instead of ensuring that there's provision of, vaccines against dog bites, they would rather kill dogs on the streets, through poisoning or shooting. And they've been doing that for the past few years. So, but pedigree dogs are fine because obviously they're valuable. They're again a symbol of wealth and status. But street dogs are so neglected, even by, not just upper class, but everyone in general, that activists in Pakistan actually have to have them adopted and sent abroad just so they get a home. So no one is willing to look after these animals. And if you start to talk about the dairy and egg and meat industry, it becomes even more difficult, because not only are these animals viewed just in that framework of products or livestock, or for the framework of consumptions, there are also so many vested interests in these industries, like frozen foods industries that produce chicken products, or like egg industry. So very powerful people, friends of very powerful people, people in government, they have shares or ownership of such industries. So so not only are we facing a general apathy towards animals, we're also facing state powers which are speaking in a colonial language. And the ones who benefit and weaponize that state language against the general population are these upper classes, landed classes, industrialists. So yeah, so you're not just going to be addressing and trying to expand empathy and inculcate this realization that animals are sentient beings. You may actually face state apparatus being deployed against you, which is what happens with a lot of not just movements, but wherever a certain profit is to be gained, or for example, land grabbing is very common in Pakistan. You might face court cases, you might face criminal cases against you, which is exactly what the British did. So yeah, that's what we're sort of up against when we're talking about animal justice in our culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namra. You have shared some really insightful information. And especially, I really appreciate how you linked the colonial laws to present political situations in the country. So I would like Shristi to elaborate on these points further. And yeah, over to you, Shristi. Thank you.
Thank you, Elia. Going last, I think so many things that Aprajita and Namra said, they resonate a lot, because I think it's universal so much what's happening to our animals all over the world. Because it is, after all, a power structure. It is, after all, the same power structure used against people, women, or animals. So basically talking about Nepal. So Nepal is a very complicated country in many ways. So when we talk about the historical influence on animal justice movement, we have to go back to the time where the very first, where it was Goodall dynasty in Nepal, where they were basically cow herders. The very first known, kind of the very first known kings of Nepal, they were like cow herders. So since then, the whole livestock and everything has started in Nepal. It's pretty much everywhere that you see. But one thing that has really kind of, and even now when I speak, has really kind of influenced the whole movement, is also because Nepal is a country with 127 cultural groups. It's a very small country, but it has 127, which means different cultures, different cultural groups, different backgrounds, different, with 123 languages. So it has a very complicated structure in itself. When we think about that, Aprajita talked about Hinduism. In Nepal, when people think of Nepal as a Hindu country, because it was a few years back the only Hindu country in the world. Now it's a republic. It was monarchy. Now we don't have monarchy anymore. But one sect that's really powerful is, even though Hindu, Nepal has been really influenced by the Shaktism part of it. Now, the Shaktism part is where the animal sacrifice come into play. It's more about celebrating goddesses. It's more about celebrating emblems and symbols. It's more about these culturally diverse groups where there were no idols to be worshipped. They were only worshipping like nature and so forth. Still now to this day. So when we talk about that, Hindu and Hindu system in Nepal is considered to be the oppressors. They are considered to be the oppressors. And when that happens, when we talk about ahimsa, when we go into a cultural diverse group and we talk about ahimsa, we talk about Hindu way of life, that completely plays against it. Completely plays against it. That's when they think like the whole oppressive measure is being undertaken and being subjected to this, which has been true a lot in our history. So the whole cultural diverse aspect of Nepal is because right now, for a couple of years back, especially right now, throughout the years, although Nepal was never colonized, but Nepal has always colonized animals, always. And one of the such aspect is this movement, when we just go to the historical part of it, from the kings, very much like India, probably Pakistan, of hunting and all this Rana dynasty and Shah dynasty, just bringing in like elephants, hordes of elephants. From India, from like inviting Britishers counterparts to Nepal for hunting, it's just like common. Now when we go to these big hotels right now, which was built by the Rana dynasty, when you go, you see these whole pictures of like hundreds and thousands of tigers being killed. It's right now, it's still celebrated, it's still hung on the walls of these people. When you go, you can still see, these like skins, tiger skins, just hung on the wall or as carpets, still to this day when you go, although it's illegal. So pretty much like what Namra said, the whole political part and the whole power structure itself plays a significant role on how animal justice movements has played in Nepal as well. Pretty much similar. And then when we come down from the monarchy, then we have to talk about a very specific detail in our history, and that is the Maoist insurgency, the civil war. The 10-year long civil war, what it did was it completely alienated a sect of the society in such a way that people became so desensitized. Like our generation, that we kind of were in the midst of it, everybody became so desensitized just seeing these dead bodies just outside our homes. Like people were just walking by these dead bodies. After a while, dead bodies became a part of that whole demography, the whole part of this environment that no one really cared. And that played a very significant part in the desensitization of people of Nepal. Because people here, we were extremely close to nature, extremely. Just like in India and other parts, we worship everything from sky to trees to jungles to every single thing, from sun and moon. Everything has a symbol, everything has a specific meaning and how we celebrate. But throughout these years, people were completely taken away from nature. And this mindset came from the unfortunate intrusion of colonial conservation. What colonial conservation did to Nepal is one of the biggest blow to our conservation movement as well as the animal justice movement. Colonial conservation came in 1975, around 1975, when the first national park was created in Nepal, which was basically what they wanted to do was they wanted to replicate what Yellowstone National Park was doing. That was very similar time. And when that happened, one of the most important cultural groups of Nepal, the Tharu population, the Tharu civilization is one of the oldest cultural group of Nepal. They have very innate connection with nature. Even now, they can identify each and every medicinal plant, medicinal tree, animal. They can track excellent wildlife, but they were taken out from the jungle. They were just like thrown away from jungle, and then when the national park was created. And when that happened, what happened was not only the social structure and economic structure fell down for these groups, for these diverse groups, but also the animals and humans, they were completely separated. And when animals and humans are completely separated, they don't humans don't understand animals. And humans and people, we all are afraid of things we don't understand. So when we don't understand and afraid of these things, we are subjugate them to this array of discrimination, this array of completely disconnect. And this is what happened to Nepal as well. The other important, I think, historical thing when we really talk about history and structure of Nepal, Nepal, I think, is an epitome of like an oxymoron. Nepal is the only country in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, but which basically worships dogs, have proper worship of dogs in one of our festivals. It's in Tihar, it's called Kukur Puja. It's a huge, I mean, you go everywhere, you see dogs with garlands or whatnot. But Nepal is also a country where dogs are killed, stabbed, hung every day. Where like the acid is thrown on them, where people who are helping them get beaten up, are getting, so it's a very difficult thing to basically see. So when we talk about culture and religion and so forth, we talk about like worshipping dogs and worshipping cows, because killing cows is illegal in Nepal. So cow is the national animal of Nepal. So you can't kill them, you can't. But then what you can do is you can actually abandon them. So when you're walking down the road, you can see so many abandoned cows and calves just right there, like suffering immensely. So you can't euthanize a cow because you'll be arrested. It is like as same as manslaughter. So, but you can't, but you can abandon the cows, you know? So that's why right now, when I even talk to people around here, I say how oxymoron our religion, the whole cultural, the whole aspect of it is. I think the other part that needs to be really kind of highlighted here is Nepal is a country where we don't have our own production. Economically, more than 90% of things we import from other places, especially from India. So which means that we can't even afford to produce the thing that we eat. We are not self-sufficient at all in any aspect, not only luxury items or any clothes or stuff like that, but even like basic amenities. So when that happens in 1990s, the whole concept of grants entered Nepal. United Nations, INGOs, the US aid, UNEP, all the things that you can think of, that basically came to Nepal in 1990s. And when that happened, people stopped working. What happened was now all these big donor agencies, when they come to Nepal, I think you all know also, they basically tell Nepal, you tell these countries to make policies and laws according to what they want. For instance, like ADB, Asian Development Bank and World Bank has given millions of dollars to Nepal in these last 2 years, even this year, to for our livestock industry, which means like Nepal wants to be self-sufficient in eggs and meat. And that's the only two part that Nepal is like seeking. Nepal is now self-sufficient in eggs because we will like probably want to export our eggs as well. But that's the only part where these donor agencies are giving money. So when grants came and when people, like when you go to where my village is, 46% of the total population of Nepal that goes outside to work, like young people, 46% are from that region where my village is. So when you go to my village, you don't see young people there working. You see like old people and women. And women, most of them have like probably 2 or 3 buffaloes or 1 buffalo, 2 goats just tied up right there. And you can't just go to these people and say like this is wrong and talk about animal justice movement there, because these are the people who have literally nothing else if they don't have these animals. So it becomes a very complicated conversation to have, because the money and profit, everything goes to these big companies and profit-oriented politicians. But whereas these people are being subjected to so many things, including like Namra said, like casteism and so forth. So everything is because it's interlinked. Nepal is also facing that right now. I think these are some of the really basic but very important roadblocks right now. For instance, like even like just one example before I end this conversation, is like the animal sacrifice. Now, animal sacrifice, what happened was like in a couple of years back, we finally got a criminal code passed from Supreme Court, which states if you are like cruel to an animal, let's say a dog, You get 3 months in jail time and around 10,000 rupees fine. That's it. I mean, that's the maximum. And I'm saying the maximum amount of thing, right? But that does not touch the sacrifice thing. It is written very clearly that except the sacrifice, everything else is subjected to it. That's why animal sacrifice is a very difficult subject here, because animal sacrifice happens every day. Every single day in all the temples all around Kathmandu, all around Nepal, at least thousands and thousands of animals are getting slaughtered every day. I think everyone's very much aware of the Garimai festival, where there 25,000 buffaloes in like 3 days. We did work with Indian government. We worked with, especially, this is the time where I have to acknowledge and thank Srimati Minka Gandhi. She really helped a lot regarding this as well. It really came down, but that's just one part. Every day it's being killed. So that's why, like, whole historically from like even the non-colonial aspect of it, the grant aspect of it, the cultural diversity of it, everything has a roadblock for animal justice movement in Nepal. So you just can't pinpoint to one thing, including our education system. Like languages, I think everyone has said already. Like for in Nepal, if you see a really fat person, you call them in a derogatory term as happy. If you see somebody, if you really want to curse somebody, you call them kukur or dog. If you are kind of really want to use derogatory term for like a sex worker, you call them bhalu. So these are all these different terms that are used every day that people don't even realize that they're using anymore. So I think there's some of the conditions among many. These are all like scattered thoughts, and I'm trying to bring them all together here because there's so much of thing going on. But yeah, I hope I tried to kind of make something clear there. Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you so much, Shristi, Aprajita, and Namra. I think it's so complex when you start dissecting one aspect, you find a link to, I think 100 more, and it's just such a web of oppression from all directions for the animals. I want to now, I know you all mentioned some aspect of his history when it comes to animal rights, and you also discussed some some basic laws and rights in each country. And very interestingly, you also mentioned like what I could gather from the conversation right now was like, even though Nepal is not colonized, but we see so many similarities for animal oppression. So that also brings us to a question in our minds that, is it colonial, or is it the colonial influence that has seeped in even to the places where, they were not physically present, and maybe they still made their presence and they're still part of that whole structure and system. So yeah, it's a lot of things, and I think I'll have a lot of things to ponder on after this conversation. So moving on, I would request you to please, if you could elaborate further on the historical aspects of the animal rights in the country. And if you want to, please, can you share a bit of knowledge of how the laws and the rights evolved over times, and do you find there are gaps? I'm sure there are gaps, but I would like to hear more, and I'm sure our audience as well, that what are those gaps exactly that are missing in the rights space. Thank you. Aprajita, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Elia. So I'm really amazed, like listening to Namra and Shristi. I think it's a very the same kinds of things which we experience in our countries, and I can relate it to a lot of things which I have read, and I've been listening. My grandma, she last year she passed away. She was 95 years old, and she has seen all those British colonialism and before that. So she used to tell us a lot of stories, like how she joined the the movement, like locally, and she was also one of the person who talked about animals, and she was a strong lady as well. So yeah, I mean, um, there was a lot of things, like, you know, when we talk about casteism, when we talk about, you know, a lot of things which where people tend to look the other people in a you know, prejudiced way, and that all kinds of oppression which existed within humans and all animals, it's all interconnected. So any kind of oppression, it is like we know it is wrong, and oppression does not exist in isolation. So you know, once it's the thought in mind, and also it's the mentality which humans, like all humans, think that we are superior because we can communicate, we are better than animals. So that kind of superiority, and we also see that exist when we talk about a lot of isms like racism, sexism, and speciesism. So all these are like all interconnected, and they did existed before colonialism as well. But like British, when British colonialism happened, it adds up more to it. Like I mentioned before, there was like they killed the they built the first slaughterhouse in India, and there was a time like 1760 to 1910. So during this time, there were like 350 slaughterhouses. So you can also think there's a very nice movie which was launched in Nepal, Maa Ka Doodh. And also it was screened in from like Elia, I think you screened that movie in Pakistan. So that also tells a lot about like how, you know, all these things happen. It beautifully explains the history of like animal oppression. And I think whoever listens to this session should go and watch that movie. So I can talk about a little bit more like how Britishers did not respect any kind of, you know, tradition or emotions related to people in India. And also there was a time where they forced Hindus and Muslims to lick cartilages spread with pigs and cow fat. So they also promoted beef eating among Muslims and encouraged people to hunt predators. Sometimes they even pay people to kill animals. So so British dislike, they also did not like Indian dogs. So like a lot of reasons behind that, because they so there used to be fight. So they portrayed Indian dogs as a like more stronger than theirs breed. So they have that kind of I would say that kind of a portrayal that they did not like it, and they all that aggression which they had in within them, they uh, with that intention, they oppressed Indians and Indian animals as well. So the British also passed first animal rights legislation in 1860. So this law banned certain kinds of cruelty to animals, but did not fund the refuge for abused animals. So it was just a, you know, law, but so we know like even how many people really follow the laws which we make and the amendments which we are making. So the first society for the prevention of animal cruelty animal cruelty in India was founded in 1861. So after decolonization, the Indian Parliament passed the first animal rights legislation in 1962. So this legislation created Animal Welfare Board of India. So which created rules and laws and animal welfare and all those things. And, next 50 years, the board passed a lot of rules in protecting animals. But still, when we see our present time, we still need to do a lot of things, because the rules are made, laws are made, but still we see the same kind of exploitation taking place everywhere. And that happens because of lack of awareness. So laws in India regulates, so this regulates slaughterhouse animal performance, transport of animals, experiments on animals, and also the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 protecting tigers. So Namra talked about tigers, and which are an endangered species because of the demand of tiger skin and tiger bones for medicines. So this happened after the decolonization, and so still, things are going on. And so we see that I can talk about the incident which happened with me it like 3 years ago. And it was really bad. There was a festival in India, Holi, and I was in my hometown. And there I came to know that my neighbors back, so they are Hindus, and they were about to slaughter a baby goat. So that was something which came into my notice, and I went to my house to celebrate the festival. But the moment I came to know, I went to the police station, and I filed a complaint. And during that time, some of the activists, they went to see the baby goat and try to try to save her. But they the people of that house, the family, they got agitated, and they were like, no, you can't do this. And they started demanding that, oh, like, why don't you say the same thing to other people? We do this thing once a year, and all those excuses. And that was very sad to hear that, because people don't see things that what is wrong, no matter you do once a year or like multiple times a year. So that kind of a tendency, and they always point out to the other people that, oh, they also do that. Go first, talk to them, try to stop the other party and other people. So this is something which we see a lot. So so they came to know that I visited police station. So around 25 people came to my house, and my parents were like really scared. And all these guys, they came to my house, and they were like, how dare you, how can you do this, and we will make you, you can't even get out of your house, and we will make sure of that, and all those threats. And I was very, this is happening right like 2 years back. And I was not scared, but my family. So my parents were like, you will go to Mumbai, you will go there, but we have to live here. So these things still happening. And when I went to the police, they straight away said, hey, why do you want to save the goat? What relation you have with the goat, and all those things. So that was like something I was like, oh, what if those people come and they just kill me just because of that? Like, what are you going to do if you don't take any action? You need to protect my family and all that. So these things still takes place a lot with the activists, when it is about dogs, cats, and during COVID times, we have seen a lot of cases. So still we need a lot of amendment, but in a way that it really works. The people, they know that they are aware about their rights, and also especially the police force, when it comes to animals, they know that, okay, this is the law and they have to take these actions. So that is something which is lacking at a very higher level. And I was like many regions in India. So so yeah, so 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 positive developments is there, like, making laws and everything. But when we talk about the gaps and the roadblocks in animal rights legislation, it's like the same, as I mentioned, the enforcement challenge. So one of the significant challenges is the effective enforcement of existing animal right laws, limited resources, lack of awareness, inadequate training of law enforcement agencies. So these kind of things hinders a lot of things in animal protection law. Also cruelty in agriculture. This is also something, so it comes under like welfareism. Uh, so we are vegans and we don't say that we need to, it's okay to eat animals, but yeah, it is wrong. So so cruelty in agriculture, it's in like extremely, like animals are extremely in bad conditions. Also like this movie, like when you see this movie Maka Doodh, you will come to know, like there's a statement by a veterinarian doctor. She talks about how pregnant cows, like buffaloes, are slaughtered, and there are some things which is just intentionally looked away, like I would say corruption, which makes it happen. And wildlife trafficking is there. A lot of people don't know about endangered species. They keep those species in their house, and and a lot of cases I have seen people keeping monkeys in their house, which is not at all legal. And so a lot of times we have reported, but when they come to know that who is doing that, they come after us. So that is something which government need to protect, even the activist, when it comes to like who is reporting that. So that is needed a lot. And lack of awareness, again, this cultural relevance for animals. There is still a need for increased awareness among the general public regarding animal rights and welfare. So education and outreach programs can play a vital role in bringing empathy and responsible behavior towards animals. So yeah, this is from my side. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for talking about this. And I think there are a lot of points I can resonate with as well. Yeah, a very important point, especially with the education and how we need to maybe, think of ways of changing people's perceptions through education. So yes, Namra, would you like to elaborate on these points as well?
Yes, thank you, Ilya. My internet connection is a bit unstable, so if anyone can't hear me at any point, please let me know. So, I mean, if we talk about the history of animal rights in Pakistan, there's very little development, but I can give you an overview of what we have achieved so far. As Aprajita has also mentioned, there was a colonial law that was passed in 1890 called the Prevention of Cruelty Act, which was applicable to to the entire British Indian Empire. And after partition happened and Pakistan inherited those laws, India seems to have made some amendments to that law, but in Pakistan, we still have that original law from the 1890. What it does is it prohibits animal cruelty, and it also defines some types of cruel treatment that is forbidden under the act. And it does criminalize this behavior, but since it was passed in 1890, the penalties are very, very minimal. Currently in Punjab, at least, the fine for being cruel to an animal, to the extent of beating it or leaving it, starving, is just 100 rupees, which is, I don't know how to convert that in a way that would make everyone understand, but it's basically nothing. So that's like the basic law that we have that really sort of criminalizes cruelty, or sets some sort of standard within our legal system. And in addition to that, there have been other laws that have been passed over time. One of them is the Wildlife Act, which has some protections for certain types of wildlife, but primarily it addresses, how to manage zoos, wildlife parks, or even, including public and private zoos. So it's more focused on administration and management and how to issue licenses and how to, what kind of fees are applicable. And thirdly, we also have, laws relating to hunting. Hunting is not forbidden. There are certain animals that may be only hunted under certain conditions, but in recent times, it's also become a very profitable thing for the government, whereby they, people from the UAE also come here to hunt certain types of birds. And the government makes money off of that whole process. So again, it's regulated. There are also court judgments that tell you what animal can be, what sort of weapons can be used, so what animal can be hunted in which season, but there's no ban as such on hunting. So we have this very sort of like, what I wouldn't call forbidden, cruelty may be forbidden in one act, but mostly it's something that's sort of managed and curated, as opposed to completely forbidden under the law. And when it comes to, other animals that we consider livestock, such as chickens or cows, goats, there is essentially no protection for them because they are operating within the legal system of, corporations and commercial establishments. So they're seen as products within that structure. There are some regulations and rules regarding that, the production of dairy and meat, such as, restricting a certain type of, milking the cow, or saying that when you are slaughtering an animal, you have to do it in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary pain. But that's where the law leaves that sort of subject, because there's no further elaboration, neither in the law nor in our judgments and precedents set by the court. So there's no lines drawn between the kind of cruelty that animals face in these factories. And this is the case, I think, across the globe as well, that animals who are within these industries, whatever cruelty or discomfort or pain that they're facing is not considered cruelty in the sense as we understand it legally as well as socially. And even though laws that exist, you could say that, okay, fine, Prevention of Cruelty Act is not adequate as a law, but at least it's there. At least it's something that can be, used. Sometimes it's enough to go and report something to a police station to get someone to stop being cruel to an animal, even if there's a minimal fine, even if they're never going to impose, that 3-month prison sentence. But there's no enforcement at all. It's kind of like, sorry, can everyone hear me? Okay. No one even knows this law exists, least of all the policemen or authorities that are meant to enforce them. So there's generally no awareness among citizens. There is a bit more awareness these days, thanks to a lot of hard work by activists and rescuers in Pakistan. But overall, institutionally, it's as if the law doesn't exist. And this is an institutional issue within Pakistan, and enforcement of laws is quite weak, even when it comes to other types of justice or rights-based laws. And there are a lot of reasons for this currently, and because animal rights is very low on the level of priorities in Pakistan, it's something that's never discussed on the political level or in the legislative level. And the reason for that, there are economic reasons for that, but history has a big role in the economic conditions that we are facing as previously colonized states. Pakistan right now especially, but throughout its time after independence, has been facing multiple crises. We've had security issues, we've had economic issues, and currently we are facing a huge economic crisis. We have endless debt. before the IMF, which is also a sort of neo-colonial institution. We also have a climate crisis. And I mean, just last year, so many people were affected by that and are still currently living without any proper homes or resources. And then on top of that, we also have endless human rights issues. We have minority religious rights issues. We have women's rights issues, children's rights issues. And it's hard enough to talk about those things. So people still consider to an extent worthy of attention. But if you start talking about animal rights, and the response that you often get is, why are you talking about animal rights when there's so many humans that are suffering? Aren't you seeing how many people are dying? Or haven't you seen how many people don't have food to put on their plates? Why were you bringing this up? So there's this general idea of, or sort of ignorance towards the how interlinked oppression is, how interlinked this sort of suffering can be amongst the public, but also complete apathy and disregard at the political and government levels. Just 1 second, sorry. Yeah, and if you really want to make change in Pakistan, often people, the laws that we see even being passed are usually in response to great public outrage or outcry. But generally, because of the way people view animals, you don't see as much outrage. But I think there has been some positive development in that area, because recently we've had some very high profile cases of zoo animals being mistreated. A few years back, I think about 3 years back, there was an animal in the capital city of Pakistan, an elephant that was kept captive since it's a very young age. And he had been living in captivity without any other elephant and was being mistreated for years and years. And it took years of work, years of negotiations, years of convincing the government to get him out of that sanctuary, to get him out of that zoo and move to a sanctuary. And that wasn't done without also pressure from and lobbying by international groups. So people were very engaged. The public was very sympathetic towards the elephant, because I think we also empathize more with animals that we can reflect, we see a reflection of ourselves in. So people know animals, elephants are social. They know that they have a sense of family ties, and they mourn and they grieve. And it's very important for them to be around other beings of their kind. So in that sense, there was a lot of outrage. And then recently, just a few weeks ago, there was another elephant, a young elephant, who died after suffering from health issues for a very long time. She passed away, and there was a lot of public outrage, to the point that the government did take notice, and they said, oh, we're sending doctors, we're trying to do our best. But that's where it stops. It doesn't go any further. And I think even people are generally satisfied that they're kept, what people would call in a humane manner, that they're kept comfortable. Okay, fine, they're in a zoo, they're in captivity, but at least they're comfortable, at least they're getting food, at least they're not getting, actively harmed. And with that, we also see the rise of a lot of private zoos, because it's so easy to possess a wild animal in Pakistan. All you need is to fill in a form, and that form is just 2 lines. And you give them your identity card, and you give them a very, very small fee, and you can own a lion or a tiger and keep it in your house. So that's how easy sorry, I'll just wrap it up. So, I mean, on the one hand, we have archaic laws that are, not being enforced, let alone developing new laws, but also a general apathy towards the movement. But we also see progress from the public and the activism that has led to banning of dog culling, banning of testing of animals in veterinary institutes, and also some conversation about ending zoos in Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namra, for elaborating on the laws. Shristi, would you like to share some knowledge from Nepal as well?
I think, yeah, okay, so like I said earlier, everything is very common. So many things are very similar to what's happening in these three countries. But when I say this, I would like to kind of differentiate, not differentiate, but like kind of put four different things right now. Like, let's see the livestock and the wildlife, along with the captive animals and the companion animals. These are the four things I'll be talking about in all the laws in these subjected in these different three strata. So basically livestock. Now livestock, I think these are the animals who are suffering the most, as we all know, because they're protected by everyone who's actually uh, practicing cruelty towards them are protected by law. By economic stature, by saying that it's going to eliminate poverty, by showing all these big jargons and big promises to people saying if you bring this huge livestock project, then it will be really good for communities and stuff, without telling these people that animal farming is one of the major reasons for climate change. Now, when we talk about livestock, even when I'm asked to speak on these big forums, there's not even one person who's talking about, especially in conservation sector, talking about how climate change and animal farming, how they are related. And that's what I make a point that I talk about this every time, because not many people know about this at all. And when we talk about livestock, like the whole welfare thing of it, because I personally am not a welfare activist. I'm a rights activist. I always feel like welfare model it will definitely decrease the cruelty, perhaps, I don't know, but it will never eliminate cruelty. It will never take us to animal justice movement that we've all envisioned. So that's I always have an issue with that. But even so, for instance, in livestock, like pigs are here. I don't know in India and Pakistan, please let me know. But in Nepal, especially pigs, when they are slaughtered, when they are called, they are not basically, they are done so in the most horrific way, by using the most horrific traditional archaic methods. Even when they're basically castrated before killing them, there's no anesthesia given to them. It's like one of the most horrific thing, more than buffaloes, more than goats, the pigs, they suffer the most. So livestock is that. People now, Nepal government is bringing so many projects into Nepal about livestock. Battery cages are coming in. Battery cages, we never had battery cages before. Now battery cages are coming in, like commercial, big, huge dairy farms are coming in, where the investment are of people from different political parties and different business houses, huge business houses, bringing lots and lots of money. Basically here, subjected in livestock. So livestock is the worst. In Nepal, we have a Meat Transportation Act, which basically works how these are transported, how they should be, like time intervals, what they should be given then, how many rest hours, rest stops, and so forth, which are not implemented at all. There are no monitoring agencies that monitoring these acts. There's not enough resources to reinforce these acts. So basically, that's really not done. There are few organizations who are trying really hard to kind of implement that, but that's a very difficult thing. That was livestock. I think livestock, it also plays a very significant role in the health sector. The doctors, nutritionists in Nepal, they put meat on the top of the chart. Meat and dairy products. They never talk about the health effects. They never talk about where these eggs are coming from. We did a research which stated in Nepal that the pharmaceutical company that gives the antibiotics, provides the antibiotics to people, and the company that basically supplies the feed for hens, the same company. These eggs are subjected to steroids, to different kind of chemicals. These hens, they are basically from small chick to a big hen. They're doing it in less than 40-50 days. People are buying it, people are eating it, getting sick left and right. The percentage of the cancer, especially breast cancer, is growing like tremendously. Almost each and every household that we know is suffering from cancer and from these amenities, but no one really is talking about why. No one is like really looking at the root. So this is how what livestock is happening. There's not much law regarding that except the Meat Transportation Act. There's no animal welfare board in Nepal. One is just under basically the whole lobbying has been done for the last 10 years. And now the government has finally said, we are going to make an animal welfare board. Now people are lobbying to get in those board animal organizations. So still not there. The board still has not been created. We don't have animal welfare law. We don't have animal welfare act. The only law that we have for is like the criminal code that I talked already, because we fought for that for 5 years. Tremendously to get this law passed. And it does, I mean, at least it gives us a place to stand on and to make some more amendments and to kind of make it more stringent. It's there. So again, it's like clearly not enough, especially regarding like dog cruelties. There are lots of cases filed, but like the police doesn't know about that law. It's not circulated. The people representatives like mayors and CDOs, they don't know about this law. So last time I was outside Kathmandu, we are doing this whole like human dog population management programs with lots of community internalizations. And there I was sitting and talking to these 5 mayors of these different cities, different municipalities. And when I told them, like, if you cull a dog, then then you are subjected to 3 months jail, and they all laughed. Like it was a joke to them. They all laughed their hearts out. They were like, how is this even happening? So I was very stringent. And then they agreed not to call them anymore, because even to this day, not in Kathmandu, not in the capital yet, but at least openly, but outside Kathmandu, there are many, majority of places, they still call dogs, although it's illegal. So it's always that issue already there. I think in wildlife, we don't have a wildlife sanctuary. We don't have a rehabilitation center. We don't have a proper wildlife hospital. We don't have proper wildlife vets. Forget about wildlife vets. In these places outside Kathmandu, when I was looking for vets to treat dogs. There's not even like one dog vet outside in this region in Tarai. They're only vets for livestock. They're only vets for cows and fish. Only for that. The government programs, they only get vets only for livestock and not for wildlife or other animals. Also, we don't have like wildlife friendly crossovers. That's why even now, like so many animals are getting trampled every day as we speak. You must know, like Nepal basically doubled its tiger population, and now they really made a big fuss out of it. They made it international thing, like Nepal is leading conservation and so forth. But the thing is, like Nepal does not have enough habitat for tigers. The habitat is being destroyed every day. We have these huge mega projects coming in Nepal, like from international airports to small airports to these capitals, like huge, insane projects, all through debt. Like it's not being, the Nepal government is not paying for it. It's all debt from China, especially. And because Nepal government has already signed an agreement with China to support traditional Chinese medicines. And based on that, the Wildlife Farming Act was pushed from 2017. In 2003, we filed the case, we won it, we stopped it. In 2017, they filed it again, and now they are presenting it in the cabinet, well, Wildlife Farming Act. The wildlife farming is going to be legal in Nepal. We're pushing, we're fighting against it. We are basically, even here, we are asking everyone here from Animals Alliance Asia for your solidarity in this. Because wildlife farming, as we all know, you know what's going to happen. When Wildlife Farming Act comes, basically everyone, every person, every business house, anyone can get license to basically breed this wildlife just in your backyard. So it's incredible. It's super cool. We all know about it. So wildlife is really extremely suffering. But I think one thing that really surprised me was I was called to one of these workshops, programs with wildlife conservationists. And I was talking about this, and I could see clearly how conservation, wildlife conservation and animal justice movement are like this separate, completely separate. They kept on saying we work for animals, but they were making fun of the vegan movement. They were like, they did not understand it. I stood there and said, I work for wildlife conservation, but I'm a vegan animal rights activist. And these two are interconnected because all of these are animals. There's not like a separate animal here for animal rights movement and separate animals here for wildlife conservation. Because conservationists, even in Nepal, like everywhere else, they believe in culling. They believe in trophy hunting. They support it like WWF. And that's why all these big NGOs, they don't make any sense to me at all. Because they are the ones who work for conservation, they do hunting, they want to do culling and so forth. And all of this is seeping in Nepal. Because you see, Nepal has very weak state. We haven't had a very stable government forever. So these are the countries that these big, different countries like China, they have their eyes on us. So when you see wherever you look, you see all these things happening. In companion animals, like you said, dogs, specific breeds. Right now, in Nepal, what happens is at one point of time, we have like one fashionable dog breed. Okay, so right now it's Huskies, and in this hot places, like even now in Kathmandu, because of climate change, it used to be cold, but because of climate change now Kathmandu is like really hot. In other parts of Tara, it's hot, like 40 degrees, 50 degrees. They're Huskies. And it's like everywhere. You see Huskies everywhere now. First, they were like Labradors and Golden Retrievers and Boxers and Pugs, and now it's Huskies. And now when we rescue we rescue the animals, we are rescuing more pedigrees than like companions, community dogs, like in our shelter, in our treatment center, we have like all breeds, like all in like deplorable conditions, and it's all because of status symbol. And like breeding centers, all these pet shops, unregulated pet shops, unregulated breeding, it's like incredible. And it's going every day. When you go and walk in Kathmandu, you see everywhere, you see all these aquariums, you see these pet shops, you see these like 1 month, 15 days year old puppies kept in heat, and like birds, like exotic birds. Sometimes when I walk, sometimes it's so much, I just don't understand what I'm seeing. It completely baffles my head. I just don't understand what I'm looking at anymore. So there's a huge need for a movement to actually, more people, definitely more people. Like we are just like 5 or 6. When I started, when we were on the road, we used to like 5 of us, There are many instances when I was the only one walking with a banner. Now it has become more. Like more people are joining in. There are more vegan activists in Nepal. There are more, especially for dogs. Maybe not so much for livestock and other animals, but for dogs, there are more people coming out, like helping out. And that's a change I'm seeing for sure. Like in government offices, people used to laugh at us when we talk about animal rights. Now they listen. We have lots of access to parliamentarians and politicians. So, for example, last month, this elephant's tusk was cut clean by some people, a captive elephant. It was big outroar in parliament as well. The home minister got personally involved to get everybody, work on it. So we are kind of penetrating the parliaments. We are doing it. I'm pretty hopeful. I'm seeing it happening. But the thing is, like comparatively, the issue is so big that whatever we do always doesn't seem enough. I always wake up and say it's not enough. I'm not doing enough. We're not doing enough. And I think this is one of the main issues. More or less, I think this is it. All these animals, everything. Wildlife wise, we have very strong policies, but again, implementation and monitoring, we really don't have. We have very strong jail time, especially for wildlife. Religiously, we don't, sacrifice is not illegal. It happens every day. Even like if we buy a new plane, a goat is sacrificed. If a new person comes into office, a goat is sacrificed. So now that's like, there's a literally, I mean, it's incredible. Now what we did was we worked really hard, and now in these government offices, no one can sacrifice animals. And like the government cannot, like all these temple committees, they cannot call for animal sacrifice, at least we have reached there, which is also a huge feat given how much backlash and personal vendetta was ruled against us. but we're getting there. I still feel like I always tell all the fellow vegans as well, young generation, that being vegan is not, it's a lot, but it's not enough. You have to be an activist, because the amount of cruelty, especially in Nepal, it's going to go more with wildlife farming, with everything else that's coming, with ADB, with World Bank coming in, with WWF and so forth. The cruelty will grow more. The animal justice movement will get worse, difficult. So I think we need more activists in Nepal for sure, and that's a huge gap right now. We need more activists for sure. Okay.
Thank you so much, Shristi. Again, so many points I can resonate with, and I truly believe that we really need more activists for the animals. And yes, you all already did dive into solutions, and you're all doing such incredible work and trying to be the solution to all these roadblocks. So I know we discussed so many issues and roadblocks and gaps, and I do like you said, you are hopeful, and we're all trying to stay hopeful of the outcome. So what, in your opinion, is the ideal solution going forward, and how can all of us together right now, who are sharing the space, support each other? Aprajita, would you like to take the lead?
Sure. I think there could not be one ideal solution. There can be many solutions which can complement each other, and I think we all have to. Education is like one of the most important things. We need to talk to our local government and the central government, like whoever is leading. Like the most participant in the education system, that try to make the books more compassionate towards, we need to see, like, we need to, if we really want compassion and love to flourish in our country, then we need to bring it upon from the childhood, and we need our text in that form, because teaching just verbally empathy and compassion and love, and then going home and eating animals is not, it's really hypocrisy. So we really need to initiate the dialogue with the government in the education system, and also we all need to get aware about, like in our countries, like it's very important to be aware about different forms of oppression. We need representation. We need since we are like we live in a diverse countries. We have diversity in each country, whether we talk about Nepal, Pakistan, and India. So about the different section, to educate them, we need representation. We need leaders who can represent different castes, different religion, different different people, like the workforce as well. And it's not just about animals anymore. It's also about the environment and the people and the mentality. We just can't talk about peace, love, compassion. We need to have those things in our mind as well. It's also about mental health, like what we are bringing up and going to portray. Like we talked about language, which is one of the most important thing. We need to educate parents as well. I think all these things need to come, and yeah, especially government promoting subsidies to promote animal agriculture. That is one of the things that activists need to look into. In India, there has been a lot of subsidies which has been promoted in order to economically strengthen people who are financially backward. But this is not going to help them in a long run, because it is eventually going to trap them in a vicious circle of poverty, and that will lead to the climate crisis, participant in the climate crisis, and diseases, ill health, and also, a lot of mental breakdown, because everybody wants to, like, I think it's a right to have a decent job rather than doing something where your instinct says that, oh, this is not right. And every person, when they are, child, like, children are very innocent. They know that, when you put things forward, you tell them the truth, they say that, oh, when they come to know the animals feel pain, they won't want to eat those animals. So we need to be very vocal about it, and empathetic, compassionate while speaking to everyone. So different different types of approach is needed, whether it is education, community building, lobbying with government, inside your family, like within your family members. I think everywhere we need to create a dialogue to start the conversation for the animals. It's not just, and also let them know that this is not just the animals, it's also about the mental health. Like, what are we bringing to, what kind of a world we are going to create for the children? We all want to live in peace, but there will be no peace. So that is something which we can do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aprajita. And thank you, Namra, for joining us back. Yes, Namra, any thoughts on solutions or practiced solutions, and how we can support each other?
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. I missed the first part of the discussion, but can you just repeat the question just so I know we're on the same page?
Yes, yes. We've moved to the segment for solutions. We have discussed gaps and challenges and roadblocks. So do you have any proposed solutions or practiced solutions, and how we can come together and support each other moving forward?
Yes. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, the international cooperation and coalition building to some extent with regards to zoo animals has been effective, particularly with one organization that has helped provide medical treatment, as well as offer to fund the transport of elephants in Pakistan to sanctuaries abroad. But I think there has to be some sort of narrative that we built collectively as, post-colonial and Asian states, particularly South Asia, because we have so many similarities. I think Aprajita mentioned earlier about this documentary called Maa Ka Doodh, which examines the dairy industry in India and how that operates and all the different dynamics that impacted. And that was such an eye-opener and so helpful for people here in Pakistan to watch, because all the content we get, all the images, all the sort of even arguments that surrounding the dairy industry that we make as vegans or vegan activists are always based on the Western models of production, or the Western perceptions of how activism should be led in each country. But when I watched that dairy industry documentary, it focused a lot on the informal sector of dairy production, which is also something that's prevalent in Pakistan. We don't have these huge dairy industries. We do have a lot of such factories and businesses now, but primarily we operate in this informal sector. So it was very helpful, and I think this is something that we can here build on, because now we have those images of buffaloes and cows. We also use buffalo milk in Pakistan. We have those models of production that we can now criticize based on what was produced in India. And that's also because I think the animal rights movement in India has reached a level that it hasn't in Pakistan. So I think it was very beneficial for us to, use resources or a material that was coming out of India that can be used for advocacy here. And I think in similar ways, we should be doing things here in Pakistan that can benefit movements across South Asia, and bring these sort of bring to light things that aren't they might not be easy for other countries to bring to light in the region. And we can use exchange of these resources to do advocacy. And on the level of, a coalition building, I think it's also important to have our own narrative of animal justice and not just rely on the Western narrative, because people in Pakistan at least are very averse to any justice-based movement that comes from the West or has language that is being used in the West. So human rights, while considered something good and noble, often sort of comes across to people as a sort of cultural imposition or political dominance from the West. So it's very important to develop language and terminology and also approaches that are relevant to our cultures here, which are very similar across South Asia. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Namra, for sharing those ideas and thoughts. Shristi, would you like to share some thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think mainly most of the things have already been mentioned, but I'll keep it short, and I'll try to keep it short. And basically, what I like, my mantra for this is there are three basic things. Like, one is educate, one is assemble, and the other one is disrupt. So these are the three things that really follow. One is educate in such a way that, yes, educate them very young from schools. That's why we need lots of programs in schools. For instance, like my daughter, she's 7. She came home with an assignment asking her to draw what animals give humans. So we sat down and we did that together. And instead of saying meat, milk, and all that things, we started drawing love and companionship and everything else. And like, for instance, by looking at spiders, we could actually create buildings by developing steel and stuff like that. So innovation. So by doing that, when she took it back, then they started having this discussion and this changed it. They changed it in curriculum, they changed in so many things. So I think that is one important part. The other is educating ourselves, unlearning everything we've been taught since we were really small, and learning more things. For instance, regarding animal sacrifice, like one of the things in Kali Chalisa, it says like the only person who can kill an animal, slaughter an animal, it's only allowed to that person who can bring that animal back to life. It's written in one of our scriptures. So we need to educate ourselves where these scriptures are, where it is written, which are these slokes, When we're talking about that and debating it, we can actually articulate it through facts and figures. So we need to be very careful, because one thing we really need to understand is the kind of people that we are against. These are the people with lots of resources, like political backing, like economic backing, religious backing. So we ourselves also need to be in that position to debate and bring a factual impacts on the table. Because unfortunately, compassion might not work with people. Emotions might not work with people. Majority people view emotions as weakness. It's very sad, but it's true. So on that wise, educate ourselves, educate those around you, especially children. The other one is assemble. Like, we need to map, we need to do a mapping, we need to do who our allies are, like in different places, in political parties, in government offices, in business houses, in activists, everywhere. If we can map it, then we can actually work together. For instance, when we had rescued a bear, a dancing bear, and we wanted to send the bear to Wildlife SOS Agra in India. Then we basically mapped everyone in political parties. We went to these politicians, we asked where there's no policy we are not allowed to send these animals outside Nepal. So we actually passed this through parliament and sent now Rangila, his name is Rangila, he's in Wildlife SOS Agra. So basically mapping and assembling, like all of us right now, just what we're doing right now. That's also one of the most incredible workable solutions, how we can help each other, how we can fill those gaps, how we can share resources. Yeah, and I think the last one is really, really important. It's disrupting, because this is a system. Animal cruelty is not an action. It's not a simple act of ignorance. Now it is a system. And in order to disrupt that system, we have to be very acquainted with like what resources we have. And whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a lot of resources, but how do we actually acknowledge it? How do we use it? How do we make friends? I think only by doing it, we can actually bring change. And that's, I think these three are the solutions that I go after. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing these wonderful solutions. And I totally resonate and agree. We need solidarity. We need to come together, and we need to change the system. Yes. Moving on. I would, Aprajita, would you like to share the announcement that you wanted to share, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Elia. We have this campaign. It's been almost like going to be 2 years. It's called Plant-Based Treaty. And this is a global campaign initiated by Climate Save Movement. And in this campaign, we are talking about animal agriculture, that how animal agriculture is the biggest, like one of the biggest cause for climate crisis. We can't only, we should, talking about only climate, like, related things like not using plastic or saving water, but not addressing the food system cannot solve the climate crisis. So we are keeping food system at the forefront in combating climate crisis in this campaign. So we have recently collaborated with the Youth for Water Plus campaign, which is the campaign of WASH initiated by UNICEF. So we have brought up one internship program, which is based on Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. And through Plant-Based Treaty, we are accomplishing 11 out of 17, 11 Sustainable Development Goal out of 17 in this program, that how we can fight the climate crisis through food system. So this is a youth internship program. So anyone who is above 18 can join this program in India. And you can look for the Plant-Based Treaty, endorse the Plant-Based Treaty as an organization, as an individual, as a business, as a you can also reach out to your local politician, city mayors, and ask them to endorse the Plant-Based Treaty, and take one step towards saving the planet by asking people not to eat animals and not to use animal products. So this is one thing which we are doing. And there are three demands in the Plant-Based Treaty: relinquish, redirect, and restore. So we are asking government not to change the land use for any further animal agriculture use. And we are asking them not to so redirect, like we need to direct towards plant-based food system as soon as possible, promoting plant-based lifestyle, promoting healthy vegan food, and making it available and accessible, and also subsidizing it majorly, which is going to help the farmers. And also eating plants and planting trees. Like we need to restore the ecosystem, the destructions we have made already. We need to restore, reforest the places, the deforested land. So these are like the demands which is applicable all around the world, and we can ask the government to sign the treaty. And this treaty has done a lot so far in past 2 years in India. There are like 15 cities mayors who have endorsed the Plant-Based Treaty. the surprising thing is that they know and they accept that animal agriculture is the problem, and but they don't know how to help to solve it, because again it comes to our conditioning and the mentality of people, how people see animals as a product. So they are open to educate people at the rural level, urban level, so that people understand it well. And also there are some development organizations, development non-profit organization, who are trying to induce animal agriculture in the rural areas in many countries in Asia, so that they can the animals get exported from one country to another, and they can make profit out of it. So that is one thing which is taking place, and that is happening by Cargill, which is the worst company in the world, and Heifer International, Oxfam. So they ask about to gift an animal. So animal gifting is one of the their campaign, which is very relevant in many countries. So in India, they seek for the places where the indigenous tribe, they ask them to do backyard poultry, backyard animal agriculture. So there are a lot of things which is going on related to all these things. So we need to make our local government, state government, or local bodies aware about it and act on it. So this plant-based treaty helps us to, and also we give a lot of resources, help, so that we can take action. And also it's more like politically accepted treaty. So you can go to www.plantbasedtreaty.org and sign the plant-based treaty, endorse it and promote it. So yeah, this is I just read the chat. So this is right now only for India, the internship program in collaboration with UNICEF. We are about to complete our first session with them, and the next session will be announced soon. But for the next session, you can apply, start applying it from now. So yeah, we will be doing that very soon as the whole session gets complete. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aprajita. Thank you all. We are slightly running short on time. So if it's possible for everyone to stay over time for like 7 to 10 minutes, so we can answer a few questions. Thank you so much for your patience. It was a lovely discussion. I did not want to interrupt. So thank you. So one of the questions for Shristi, to work with government authorities, lobbying, and policymakers, what approaches do you think can be effective depending on our respective countries? Do we take the support of existing laws? And if there are none, how do we convince authorities to engage with us?
Yeah, I think this does depend country-wise, because the political system and government system can be different. In Nepal, what we do is, of course, with existing laws, we do use that. We do use the existing law. We kind of stand on it, like I said before, and then we kind of pressure the government. One approach that really works for us is like I said, the mapping thing. Because you see in Nepal, like everyone is connected to everyone in some aspects, especially political parties. So the first thing is we always approach the political party first, for the help, and then to different member of parliaments, to different politicians. We do use our personal connections. We do use our especially help from friends like journalists, other activists, from like social activists and stuff like that. That has really helped right now. I feel like while the already existing legal framework really helps a lot, but at the same time, if there are no laws at all, then we do push for those formation of those laws as well by working with a legal team. We have a very strong legal team. We work, and they're so incredible because majority of them, they do work pro bono for animal cause. And these these advocates and these lawyers, they work together to formulate these bills and policies together with us. And then we really pushed it through the parliament, pushed it through these different House of Representatives. We also filed cases in Supreme Court. For instance, there was this elephant trade, especially after COVID. What happened was, you know that there are captive elephants in Nepal for tourism purposes, for rides and so forth. And because these owners, they could not take care of these elephants during the COVID time because there were no tourists, they started to sell these these elephants to India. And now these elephants were being walked for hours and hours. They're generally they are malnutrition. Their welfare is like next to zero. Everyone who knows about the elephant condition in Nepal knows this, how they are like subjected to so much cruelty and so much, like, it's incredible. Like, it's just so basically, and even they had to walk for days to go to India. So we filed a case in Supreme Court to implement the very strict, stringent monitoring in the border area. By after doing that, the Supreme Court passed a decision to make it more stringent. And then what happened is around 3 or 4 elephants were kind of returned. They were turned back from the border. So basically, that's what we do as well. We file cases in Supreme Court. We work with the legal team. We work with other fellow activists to get their mapping on political front. We work with local governments, and more, of course, especially before, no one used to listen to us. But now, because we've been so many times, we've been on the road. We've been protesting like day in and day out for years. Now they're taken seriously. So definitely, these are the few approaches that we use right now.
Thank you so much, Shristi, for explaining that. Unfortunately, we won't have time to answer all the questions, but I'm so thankful for all of you to have been able to join us. And Namra, Shristi, Aprajita, your work is so important. So thank you for doing all that you do. And I'm so happy to have been facilitating this conversation today. Please, 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 everyone who joined us today, if you could fill in our feedback form, that will help us in having more of these conversations, and your feedback is so important to us. Further, I would like to say that we have our annual academy coming up. It's Animal Advocacy Academy. We did that last year as well. You will learn about how to communicate effectively, mobilize people. There will be many workshops, and these will be country specific. These will be suitable for vegans, animal rights activists, advocates, etc. And please follow us on social media, and we will share the details of the academy very soon. Thank you so much. And you can also have the link to our last year's Changing the Narrative series. So there were amazing topics covered. So do check that out. And you can always contact us on our website and on our social media if you need to. Thank you so much, everyone who joined us today. I am so glad that we had this conversation, and I hope that we keep in touch and we build on this conversation and build solidarity amongst each other. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Ilya.
Thank you.
Thank